Celtics blow another big lead, 107 to 106. This is the Garden Report on Celtics blog and CLNS radio. All right, so before we even get to the game, we'll get to that in the second video. We have to talk about the huge rumor that's been going on all day, Twitter blowing up. Although I guess Twitter always blows up every time some big rumors are coming out, right?
Twitter is constantly in a blow-up state.
Exactly.
It just happens to be at the Celtics today, so
But
yeah.
especially when there's rumors about, and it's the Omer Asik deal. It went from the Celtics might be participating in it to the Celtics are now down and negotiating over which first-round pick to send for Omer Asik. The deal on the table is Asik, or reportedly on the table, is Asik for Courtney Lee, Brandon Bass, and a first-round pick. We don't really know which one it is yet. That's where the negotiations are right now. Well, let's just go first to Courtney Lee talking about it before the game.
Yeah, I mean, you always want to stay put, but it's the NBA. So, I mean, some people live on the move, other people stay put. So, I mean, whatever happens, happens.
Courtney, how hard is it to block that stuff out? I mean, we're all here.
It's very easy. I became a pro at it. You get used to it after a while. I mean, you go do your job. It's just part of being a professional. So you get paid to play basketball. So I just got to make sure I show up and have that same mentality whether I'm here or somewhere else. Nah, they usually don't talk to players before they make a trade unless it's something that both parties agreed on. So, I mean, when it happens, it happens. If it does happen, nah, you can't assume. I mean, it's going to be trade rumors all year with different people. You can't just think something's going to happen and then you start asking questions. You just got to, like I said, stay professional, do your job, and be prepared for tonight's game.
The fact that the rumor is to H-Town make it better than, say, the middle of nowhere?
I mean, it makes the rumor sound a little bit better, yeah.
So Courtney obviously wouldn't be too opposed to returning to Houston. He seems to like Houston very much.
He loves H-Town, yeah.
That's right. But Evans, seeing Courtney tonight...
I don't believe him.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think
I forgot my question. Why not?
I just...
Cut me off, wow.
He was fine leaving, I think. I mean, I asked him about Houston once, and he didn't even really want to talk about Houston at all. I'm pretty sure.
He didn't want to talk about New Jersey. Remember not Brooklyn. The first time I ever talked to him, he said, listen, don't talk to me about New Jersey.
The guy's been traded 3 times.
Yeah.
When he says he's numb to it, he's probably not lying. He's probably numb to it. Like, when you've been traded 3 times and you're 28, it's just part of the game at this point, right?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that he does keep being traded. Like, why does he always keep being traded? He seems like
because he's not
a good dude.
He's just good. Like,
he's good. He's like good at everything. He's not like great at one thing. And I guess he's just a good throw-in to.
He's a utility guy.
Yeah, he's a role player that can help you win, and not every team needs that role player from year to year, and so you move into a team that does need that kind of player.
Like the Celtics.
I mean, the Celtics. Yeah. Last year when they got him. Needed him. Now they've got a 30-man rotation of Rondo and Bradley and Jordan Crawford, and Lee's expendable.
And we didn't really give them what they needed last year. But now it seems like this year he's starting. He is actually...
He's kind of playing like the player that they wanted last year. Which he was for most of the first half of the season last year, and then things really fell apart on that West Coast swing in March.
And now that he's playing that way, now his trade value is up a little bit.
Well, I mean, the whole narrative about the Celtic team is they're building up assets for something bigger, right?
Right, yeah.
You get 5 guys in each position on your depth chart so you can move some of them. And it's nothing personal against Courtney Lee.
No.
He just happens to be an asset such that the math works salary cap-wise, and the Rockets are interested, and it just works. And I think it's not as though they hate Courtney Lee. They're just making a deal that makes sense for them.
And I think when Rondo comes back, obviously Rondo is the 1. Crawford probably flips a little bit between the 1 and the 2.
Offense, defense with Bradley.
Which takes away more minutes from Lee. I mean, he's the odd man out. I mean, it makes sense that he is part of the deal. Like you said, it's the first-round pick that they're up. What's it gonna be? I hope it's not the 2014 pick. I think we're all in agreement there. Obviously, because it's such a good draft.
Well, like Danny Ainge said, and this is how it looks, is that the draft is pretty top-heavy. You're looking at an amazing top 10, and not a ton to look at outside the lottery.
He could just
if it's
be
the Atlanta pick,
well,
sure, of course.
But
if it's the Atlanta pick, that's like
there's a domino effect. If there's 5 or 8 great players, and that means those 5 or 8 great players that normally wouldn't be in the draft, the players behind them, they would just slide right on up. So I mean, it's got to be.
Yeah, I mean,
got to be a deeper draft.
Is 20 deep.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
But draft picks miss all the time, and like you're getting a guaranteed
Paul
good player.
Pierce was
at
number 10, and he's a franchise player for the Celtics.
Paul Pierce shouldn't have been a number 10 pick, but yeah, I agree with
play this game all day.
I agree
with
what you're saying. Yeah.
Dirk Nowitzki was 9. I mean, you can say whatever you want. I mean, you can still get a great player at 10 in a deep draft, and that was obviously a deep draft that year.
All right, let's operate off of the idea of the 2015 Clippers pick. which I think we all agree is probably the least valuable of the multitude of first-round picks the Celtics have. Is that trade fair for Asik?
I would do it.
And
Absolutely.
And it looks like Dante Montejunas was the last report that we saw before we went on air.
Donatas?
Yeah, Donatas Montejunas, but Montejunas.
Let's not talk about
and
it.
he's a very talented player. He's very raw, but he's got a lot of talent in the high post, and he's a cap throw-in. That's a great cap throw-in.
Yeah, I mean, would I do the deal without him if the numbers worked? Yeah, probably. I mean, the point is you're getting a top 10 center, I guess, in Asik. I mean, closer to 10, but I mean, it's a position that is really scarce among
He's exactly
NBA
what the Celtics
teams.
need.
Right, and here's the thing. How are they ever going to get a center of his caliber? They're not going to get one in the draft. They're not going to sign one. I mean, the only way they can do it is if they can trade for one, and there's not that many available. No one's really trading great centers. I mean, this is a guy who's a starting center who just happens to be behind the best center in the NBA, or one of the best centers in the NBA, and Dwight Howard.
Yeah, you're getting rid of three assets, all of which are completely expendable for the one thing you very, very, very much need. That's perfect.
Yes.
Like, you have 1 million power forwards, 1 million guards, and 1 million draft
and they're a lot easier to get.
Trade them for Omer Asik, who's exactly what you need. He's a rim-protecting center. How many times this season have we said, if only there was somebody protecting the rim besides Brandon Bass? Like, now you have it, right?
Yeah.
This is perfect.
And while it might make them better this year, that's not the point. I mean, people are saying, "Oh, they're playing for now." No, they're not playing for now. It's going to make them better next year. And the hope, if they trade for him, I assume the hope is that they can re-sign him for something realistic, and that they want.
I mean, $8 a year for a good center, that's a great price.
Yeah. Exactly. So, I mean, that's what they're building towards. I mean, if you lock this guy up for more years and still add pieces, younger guys around him, you don't need your center to be this offensive superstar. You need him to do exactly what he does, which is play defense, grab boards, and man up on opposing team centers.
I think because of the cap rules, they're not going to give an extension if they get him, because he's making $15 million the last year, and the extension will be too big. They got to wait till free agency or something like that.
Okay.
But still, you want to, keep him here for a year and a half.
It's a lot easier to
try to re-sign him.
A lot easier to re-sign him than to sign him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or you can, sign and trade him in July 2015 if that works out. I mean, who knows? But getting him in the fold first is the first step. I mean, you need to have an asset like that in your camp before you can build toward anything.
And I think that Houston's up against the clock. I think more than the Celtics are. I think they might break before the Celtics would, because they want to make this trade by Thursday at, 5 o'clock?
I don't know what time, but yeah.
Whatever time it is, because if they do it after that, then they can't trade those players
by the
before the deadline.
Yep.
And the Celtics, if Danny Ainge is really playing hardball, he can say, okay, we're fine with that. We'll keep our guys.
I saw Ken Burger tweet today
anyways.
that it doesn't matter because you can't trade Bass and Lee anyway. Nobody wants them, which is an interesting point. But
the Rockets want them.
But the point is you can't flip Courtney Lee for anything else because nobody wants Courtney Lee.
I got you.
Which I believe it.
But
I mean, it's two decent players that can help the Rockets right now. I mean, Brandon Bass can start next to Dwight Howard. He's done it before in Orlando. He can do it again now. It's a good combination.
I think it helps out both teams. I mean, they're getting literally nothing out of Asik because he's just sitting on the bench with a fake injury because he doesn't want to play.
I mean, from the Rockets' perspective, I'm kind of surprised they haven't found anything better. Like, I'm kind of surprised there's not a better package from the Hawks or the Sixers or whoever else. But hey,
maybe they're asking just for too much.
Yeah, maybe.
Or maybe the fact that Asik demanded a trade 5 times completely destroyed his value for the most part.
There's still a bidding war for him. There's still multiple teams that want him, so that shouldn't matter.
But it still sets the bidding war way lower than it would have been.
I mean, it's a free market where multiple teams are competing for him. There's no reason that they shouldn't have leverage when they're fighting against each other. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, look at it this way. All the talk was Ryan Anderson, Paul Millsap, Thaddeus Young. Now we're talking about Brandon Bass in the first-round pick and then Courtney Lee, depending on how you value them. I mean, that's a significantly lower value than the other names that have been thrown around, that were thrown around just based off people speculating.
Right. There was nothing. Those names didn't hold any water. Those are just names that were thrown.
Those are never actually sourced names.
Well, there's one other possibility, which is this deal's not going to happen, and the Hawks are going to get him after all, because they've been very, very cryptic. Danny Ferry doesn't let any leaks out. It's possible that the Hawks have this Millsap deal already in place. They're just not saying anything about it. We shouldn't speak too soon about this Bass and Lee deal, because who knows what's going to happen.
You say Millsap? Did you say?
I said Millsap.
I said Millsap too.
We all said Millsap.
Millsap, Paul Millsap, Atlanta Hawks.
He's wait, I didn't even hear this.
There have been rumors. I mean, who knows?
But it's all speculation.
I wouldn't even do that if I was the Hawks. I love Millsap.
Me either, but
they'd like to move Horford down to the 4 if they could, because Horford's been playing 5.
Maybe there's other pieces involved. Maybe it's Montejunas, like you said, or maybe it's a huge deal with Jeremy Lin in it. Who knows?
Ooh, what about Jeremy Lin to the Celtics?
We're ending this video now. We're not even touching.
What if the Rockets include Ron? What if the Celtics include Rondo in the deal and get Lin back too?
Just Jeremy Lin and Omer Asik.
No, I'm just
Okay,
joking.
if your brains are still together, part 2 of the video.
Wait,
the
real
Garden
quick.
Report,
Would you do it?
forget this.
Would you do it?
The trade?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, you won't do the trade?
No,
Would
I
you do
want
what
a top
trade?
5. I want a top 5 pick in this draft. I'm gutting this roster as much as I can.
I'm glad I asked. He won't do the trade.
Why make a
What
trade?
top 5 pick? What are you talking about? What top 5 pick is what?
Why make a trade for Omer Asik when you can gut the roster and go for a top 5 pick and get a much
What
much
top
better?
5 pick are you talking about? Do those grow on trees now?
Well, yes,
don't
they
think
grow
they're-
on trees based on your record.
I don't
Oh,
think,
the Celtics are
I'm-
not going to finish with one
the
of the 5
Celtics-
worst records in the NBA.
The Celtics should finish with one of the 6 worst records in the NBA.
this
That's
rate,
the,
no.
that's
Get
the
out of
best
here.
long-term
Get
approach
out.
for the team.
at this rate,
It's
they're
not
not going
possible.
to, though.
Oh, sure they can. They're 12 and 14.
You're,
They-
you're
12 and
saying,
15,
you're
but
saying,
they're
still.
12 and 15. They can go to tailspin very quickly.
you're saying if they trade all their guys, they can. Yeah, obviously, but how do you can't just do that. You can't just dump all your guys for nothing in return.
What has been happening across the NBA for the past?
They're in
like, 3
5th
years?
place in the East, 5th place.
They're not going to do that. They're not going to do
They're
that.
in 5th place, and if they go on like a 4-game losing streak, they're down to like.
Yeah, if they lose to Washington
from
and
last.
Cleveland, good luck with that. You can't even lose to those teams if you try. I mean, like, what are we talking about here?
I just think it's too risky. I don't think they're bad enough to get a high enough percentage to get that low pick. I mean,
Exactly.
If they got the roster, that's how they become bad enough. And that's the approach.
So
a lot of teams are going for
so
that.
you trade
approach.
Rondo?
If
or
you
not?
just release everybody
Rondo's
right now,
coming
you
back.
can start
still-
you and me.
you can
Rondo's
still do-
coming back, so
You
you're
could
trading
still
Rondo?
you could still be a terrible team with John Rondo as your point guard. It's possible.
If you trade
you
who?
really got the team. You trade away Green. You trade away pretty much every player except for
You
Bradley
got to get guys
Solinger
back, though.
and
If
Rondo.
you're trading a guy like Green, who are you getting?
You get Maurice Spates back. That's what every single team in the league is doing. They're giving away their good players and getting Maurice Spates back. There's like 7 Maurice Spates around the league right now.
All right,
Okay.
next video. Okay, we're done.
All right, so I would
Maurice
do
Spates being
the,
a
we would do
placeholder
the
for the
trade.
year
You
before.
would.
Yeah,
do
we
the
have
trade.
brains, and he's Jerry.
Okay.
So,
I mean, do the trade if you can manage to still lose. If you can gut the rest of the roster, go ahead. But the best long term strategy for this team is to get one of those top 6 picks in the draft.
which isn't possible. Okay, let's move on.
Well, to say it is
Why-
impossible
what-
is ridiculous.
what-
they're
They're in 5th
They're
place.
12 and 15.
They're in 5th place.
But
The
they
league-
don't have to tank to be. They don't have to tank to rebuild. I mean, they have that massive trade exception at the end of this year. If they get a guy like Asik, they've got a solid lineup as is. I mean, if they
Or
add,
Kevin
they're
Love.
one or two guys away from being a decent team with Asik. And I'm talking about that using that trade exception, drafting a decent player. Like I said, you can still draft a decent player at 10, 15 if you draft right. If you draft the right guy, I mean, yeah, it's not going to be Andrew Wiggins. It's not going to be Julius Randle. Whatever. It's
But it
not going
could
to be those guys.
But it could be one of those guys.
Could be.
If
Milwaukee's getting them. Utah's
they-
getting them. We're not getting them in Boston. Just forget it.
Okay.
All right,
Moving
I'm not giving up on it, but
You should.
tune in for part 2.
What was the play call in that second last play where you guys had to call the timeout with 4 seconds left and you guys stuck?
Brandon, how does it feel that Coach drew up a play for you on that second to last possession?
I don't remember that play. I don't remember
Locking
that.
it out?
Yeah, I don't remember that play.
Brandon, was it nice to see what the front court was able to do, at least in the first quarter to the first half? How far you guys have come since game 3?
Yeah. Yeah.